Good morning, everybody. I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today our topic is going to be about self-love and forgiveness. So I hope that you'll stay tuned, and if you like that that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. I first want to welcome you back. If you visit this channel on a weekly basis, I want you to know how very much I love and appreciate you. I thank you very much for your support in whichever way you tend to show it. Whether you're sending me prayers, good vibes, or whether you're liking and subscribing and sharing, however, and some of you even contribute monetarily, and I sure do appreciate that because I am not monetized as of yet on this channel. I still need more subscribers, so when you share the videos it helps in that area too. So I thank you very much in whichever way you can choose to support this channel. I thank you. I'm very, very grateful. I apologize for that. That means it's 6 in the morning. So thank you very much. But if you're new to this channel, I want to welcome you here. And I just need you to know that I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a scientist, any of those things, but I like those things, and sometimes I share what I learn about those things if I think it might help you too. But what I am is a life coach, or I'm choosing to call myself a life midwife, because I help people navigate life on life's terms, rebirth themselves, so to speak. So, I just want you to know and understand that. And like I said, I have a webpage called stacyforlife.com. You're welcome to check out the services that I provide as a life coach, what I deal in especially. But let's get started on the topic today of self-love. I asked people who are near and dear to my heart. I asked my friend Susan, what do you think I should talk about this week? She said, I always like when you talk about self-love. So, in discussing and talking with Susan, we've talked about a lot of triggers, and these triggers, that once we heal these triggers, they seem not to bother us so much anymore. So what she's noticed is things that would have bothered her in the past no longer have an effect on her, which when it no longer has an effect on us, it has no longer effect on our emotional well-being as well as our physical well-being. Things don't wear us down as much. So that is very much a part of self-love, is when we can do the healing work on ourselves. That these things that we think about ourselves are typically what spin us off. And then when I was asking Jennifer, my dear friend Jennifer D., about this also, she said she likes when I talk about how we are triggered and how it affects us, with our relationships with others, our relationships with food, our relationship with anything that we may distract ourselves with. So she liked that. So again, that's a form of self-love, is how are we taking care of ourselves? Are we paying attention to ourselves? Are we paying attention to what we say to ourselves, our inner dialogue? Because our inner dialogue becomes our outer dialogue, you see. So it's very important for us to know what we are saying to ourselves. Again, I hope that you're going to like this content, and I hope that you yourself are working on self-love, because self-love extends into outer love. And as we head into February, we're getting close to February, the month of love, and what does love look like? What does that look like? And first off, it starts with ourselves. We've always heard you can't give from an empty cup. So how can we love ourselves? Do you find yourself saying negative things about yourself? Sometimes we think people only like us for our money. They only like us for what we can do for them. They only like us for sex and food or shelter. They only like us for this or that. Those are things, when you tell yourself those things, that people only like you for those things, that is not self-love. And when I work with people, we work on changing that inner dialogue. So we're going to talk about that today. So when we look at and we talk about those things, we can't help but reflect on the past. What is disrespect? What does that look like? Because oftentimes we get caught up in this thing about disrespect because our parents, were so heavy into don't disrespect me, disrespect, disrespect, disrespect. So oftentimes what we think is disrespect is what we've been taught is what is disrespect. A lot of us think that if we look each other in the eyes that we're showing respect. I personally think that, but I know for myself in my trail, it took me having to learn to look myself in the eyes to be able to be comfortable with looking other people in the eyes. And that began in my recovery, because oftentimes we have a low self-esteem. We don't feel heard. So maybe we don't think we're important. Maybe we do tell ourselves we're not important. But we are. You see, as I've told you all before, that's in the bottom of my defects. If I don't feel important, it's when I feel insecure. That's when I feel jealous. That's when I feel all these different feelings that we don't think we're supposed to feel. We should not feel these ways. So oftentimes we mask this, and therefore we don't get to work on our triggers. And we don't understand our relationship with food. When we get triggered, since we don't think we're supposed to feel or think a certain way, we may tend to either go eat food, or we may tend to starve ourselves. We go from one extreme to another oftentimes. Or we may tend to overuse alcohol or drugs. We may tend to think we deserve to party because we feel shitty, or we may think that we deserve to celebrate because we don't feel shitty, So it's understanding our relationship with everything. And what is self-love? Is self-love obliterating ourselves, doing things we don't understand what we do? That's not self-love. Is it feeling regretful and remorseful after we eat that food? That's not self-love. So if we can catch ourselves before that, and whatever this trigger is, then we can figure out where this came from and not be shooting on ourselves or supposed to be on ourselves. Then we can really get to the authentic core. It's kind of funny when I'm talking to people, because we all know intellectually how we're supposed to think and how we're supposed to feel, but until we actually can feel and think what we're thinking and then heal from that, do we get to be real? You see, because people can tell when you're just authentic, or whether you're just reading something and you're just saying, oh yes. We have a tendency not to look somebody in the eyes when we're just going from the intellectual mind. Like I said, when I started recovery, I wasn't sure if recovery was going to work for me. So I also took martial arts too, in which I had to look in the mirror. I had to learn to focus. I've had clients, sometimes say to me is, I don't understand why I can't look people in the eyes. And it's that low self-esteem. It's that used to not feeling heard. We don't know how to feel heard. And so when we look into another person's eyes, that could be a mirror or a window to the soul. And if we haven't been able to recognize our own soul, then it's going to be hard to recognize someone else's. Let me tell you the quote in my thoughts that I used this week on Facebook. Okay, it's a quote from the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. This is Martin Luther King Jr., as I said. Forgiveness oftentimes begins with ourself. We get angry because of a story we told ourselves and project that onto an object, person, or place. If we are angry at the person, it is that we gave them power. Most angers are from misunderstanding and keeping on with that storyline. Forgiveness is about being willing to let go of that storyline and see how it did or did not serve us. Healing the evidence we used to create that wound. So let's talk about that evidence. So what happens is when we're creating evidence of not feeling important, we will point out how somebody is ignoring us. And we will point out how and what does that really mean if we think somebody's ignoring us? Maybe we're having a fear of abandonment issues. Were we abandoned in the past? When we can look at this, we can also, and we can feel this and understand, I felt abandoned in the past. Am I being abandoned now? Now, I'm not saying not to point out if you're feeling ignored. I'm just saying not to go with that storyline. It's that we have to learn to communicate in a different way. The thing is that oftentimes we react due to these triggers rather than responding to the triggers. So learning how to communicate a different way, because the same thing will continue to happen if we do the same thing. we talk about this time and time again, doing things over and over and expecting different results. So if I'm feeling abandoned, I have to learn how to communicate this in a way that's not offensive and projecting onto another person. Then I can say, I don't know if I'm feeling this correctly. Being able to accept that maybe what I'm thinking and feeling is wrong. I know. But it happens sometimes. Sometimes what we're thinking and feeling is not correct. Because this is the thing, is that sometimes people are doing themselves. I know. How the nerve, right? Is that sometimes people are in their own heads. They're thinking their own thoughts. Or perhaps our energy is affecting them, because we do have this energy field that we operate in. So if we're feeling needy, chances are a person may feel repulsed at us. So we want to make sure and check within ourselves, am I acting and behaving in a needy way? Am I needing something from this person that I'm not giving myself? Are you giving yourself an amount of time? Have you abandoned yourself and your feelings? See, this is the thing, is that oftentimes we project this abandonment onto somebody else, but maybe we're scattering ourselves, trying to do too much. And we all have a tendency to do that at times, is to maybe take on a little too much. This rarely happens, but it sometimes does. It just recently happened with me, and my feelings of insecurity came in because I wasn't in myself. I had kind of abandoned myself for the day and what my needs were. I didn't stop when I needed to stop and halt when I needed to halt. So we have to ask ourselves this before we eat the food, before we overdrink, before we accuse somebody of a behavior that we ourselves are doing to ourselves. We have to check in with ourselves. So we learn to name our fears. What are these fears? When I'm starting to feel this way, when I'm starting to feel neglected, rejected, abandoned, jealous. So we can name these fears. If we name this and own this, instead of think I should or should not feel this way, and say, yeah, I'm feeling this way. And then we can be real and think of times when we have felt this way before and cry and ask to be relieved of the obsession of feeling that way and the gathering of evidence of feeling that way, and then turn it over to your higher power or whoever you perceive that to be. I've had a pity party one time, and I was thinking, that I was being abused and used and all of this, and I sat there, and when I calmed down, I hit a pillow, I threw a Texas hissy fit and everything, thinking that I didn't get a job position because of this or that and other reasons, that was made up in my head. And it was just evidence. It was just that I was searching for evidence. It wasn't even real. I didn't know that. And when I came down to it, I realized, Stacy, you don't even know this. And is this how your higher power would have you think about yourselves? When we think about how we talk to ourselves, if our mama heard somebody talk to us that way, our mama would probably lash out. I know my mama would. But oftentimes it's our moms or our dads who gave us this terrible self-dialogue. And we can understand that as we're grown, it's our responsibility to change that internal dialogue. That our parents just didn't seem to know better. Maybe their parents gave them a shitty internal dialogue too. And that we can forgive our parents. We can forgive ourselves for accepting this internal dialogue. That's not who we truly are when we realize that we are a soul that is more capable and more powerful of anything. When we look at heroes who have overcome some of the most horrific incidents, it's that they told themselves something else rather than, the storylines that have been passed down for centuries. That's why they're our heroes. Oprah Winfrey is one, and she says, let me get my notes here. She says that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different. Forgiveness is accepting that it has happened to you. So maybe we don't like what happened to us, but forgiveness is accepting that this did happen. And that it isn't a reflection of who we are, it's a reflection of who they are and their hurts and their pains. And it doesn't mean that we go on and continue to accept and to experience those hurts and pains of another person. It's just that we accept that it did happen to us, that we have choices, and that we don't have to participate in that. While we can forgive that person of their misunderstanding of who they are, of who we are, of who all of this is. Because when we think that somebody's just wanting us for our money, we're attracting that vibration to ourselves. When we think that somebody just wants us for sex or wants us for this or that, then we're attracting that vibration to ourselves. So it's how taking responsibility of what we think will change our perspectives. So when we look at this, we look at letting go of the past doesn't hold us prisoner and hostage for today, you see. Forgiveness is the best gift that we can give ourselves. So I also talked with Natalia too, and Natalia says yes. Changing our self-dialogue and changing our way of looking at ourselves and at life and the people outside of ourselves, and being able to forgive the storylines that they tell themselves and that they've told us, and that we know that we are bigger and better than any kind of storylines, that we are ever changing and ever evolving. And that because things were always one way, that we can change our thoughts. When we shift our thoughts and change our thoughts, our perspectives will change, which allows us to be more free and open for love. When we don't think that people just love us for our money, or that they just love us for this or that. When we realize that we are indeed the embodiment of love, and that we give from a wholehearted place, that we change our tapes and dialogues. Maybe we were taught to be giving to get people to love us. But sometimes it can be giving of your time, it can be giving of your attention, especially, is a great way to show love. And especially if you attend to yourself first and you have channeled through your own wants, needs, and desires, then you can totally sit with another person and be able to give them your full attention. And that means a lot to people, because people just want to be heard. And once they can be heard and they can channel that and hear how they sound and what they're saying, what their inner dialogue is and how it becomes their outer dialogue, and have someone sit with them with a non-judgmental way that can love them for who they are, then that is the healing part. So I hope that this video has been helpful and that you have gotten something out of this about self-love, self-healing, and being able to feel your feelings, to be able to honor yourself. When you don't feel like peopling a day, don't people, Take care of yourself, nurture yourself, and don't feel guilty. It's letting go of that guilt and shame, and being able to be vulnerable with somebody, because we're going to be vulnerable. We can either be vulnerable now or we can be vulnerable later. So we're going to be vulnerable. Nothing more vulnerable than how you speak to yourself. Change your dialogue. You're grown. You're grown. Change your dialogue, y'all. So, I hope, again, that this video has been helpful. I'm trying to see if I missed anything. One way that you can see when you have a negative thought, rather than pushing it away, say, isn't this interesting? And then where did it come from? Because we take these negative thoughts so seriously. So, can you say to yourself, when you have a negative thought about yourself, isn't this interesting? Catch yourself. Isn't this interesting? And then we say, why did I think that? Why did I think that? And then we say, is it true? And then if it's not divine, it's not true. Because you are divine. You are a soul. We are all souls, and we are meant to be connected and to grow. We all have something valuable and something to offer into this world. And so I pray, it's my hope, that you will love yourself, and do something that's nurturing to yourself. Question your relationships that are sabotaging to yourself, whether it be your relationship with food, your relationship with people, your relationship with yourself, because that goes into everything. Because it will, pay attention to what you're telling yourself. What are you distracting from? Isn't that interesting? So I hope, again, that this video has been helpful. and that you've been able to get something out of it. And if you have any ideas for future topics of videos, or you have any input, feel free to email me at stacyrenee4life@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to contribute to this channel, you may contribute at stacyreinick@gmail.com. You can also email me there, and I look forward to hearing from you. You know, let me know if you have a topic you'd like me to cover or get into. I think the next week we're going to talk about codependency in love. You know, so if you have anything you'd like to offer there, then please let me know. Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate you. You and your time are very valuable, and I hope that you'll have a great rest of your week, and I wish you much peace and love. Thank you so much. Bye.